I am uncertain. I am not sure. I am scared. I am frightened. I felt like I wasn't good enough. The answers in the book of the occult. There was something wrong with me. King of the devils. What was I thinking? It was a demon. I had no idea what I was messing with. Well, this is a video that I never thought I'd make. I'm Karen Strunks, and this is my testimony, my journey to a connection and a relationship with God. And I'm going to take you right back to my childhood, tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, the highs, the lows, the sins, the darkness and the light that's taken me to get to this point. And I've made a few notes here, so if you see me looking down, that's what's happening. And I might jump around a little bit because I'm sure things will come to mind as I'm speaking, and I'm also sure that I'll leave a whole lot out. But I just feel called to make this video and share this journey with you now. So, going back to, let's say, my earliest memories. I was raised in a Catholic household, and I went to a Catholic school. This is in London. And so I was aware of Jesus and the story at a childlike level. But one of the first memories that I have of encountering something that was not of this world was actually when I was around the age of 5, when I was woken up in the middle of the night with this, I feel like now it was a demon behind me and speaking into my ear in a really, really evil voice. And I'm not even sure at that age I had a knowing of like the demonic side of life, or the demons existed. And I felt it scratching my back basically, and I could see something shape-shifting in the room. The memory is so clear. And then I screamed, and then my mum came in the room, and you know, everything settled down. But that stayed with me, and it scared me. The next thing that I encountered was maybe a couple of years later, when I went to a childminder's. And at the time, so maybe I was about 6 or 7, I guess then, and the childminder had a daughter called Mandy who was 13 at the time, so she seemed like really growing up to me, looking back. And we went into her bedroom. She said, well, I want to show you something, and she brought out this makeshift, I didn't know what it was at the time, a Ouija board. And she said that her and her friends at school had been contacting some guy that had been killed in a car accident or something, and she said, I'm going to call him in, and she knew his name. So she set up the Ouija board, turned the glass over, and proceeded to speak to him. And I had no idea what was happening, but the glass started to move around. I really didn't register really what was happening, other than she was speaking to a dead person, and I wasn't scared. I was just kind of just taking it in. And then Mandy got up and walked over to the corner of her room. So she left, her completely stepped away from the Ouija board, and she started singing a song. But then the glass actually started, she said, keep your finger on the glass, and the glass started like raising up and down and tapping on the Ouija board, the actual board that she had. It was like tapping up and down, and I looked at her, my finger was on it, but I wasn't doing it. And she said, oh, he's clapping because I'm singing him a song. I was like, all right. And I was like, oh gosh, this is weird, but it's kind of cool. So then I had no idea what I was getting involved with, and I thought, oh, I can do this myself. So I made my own Ouija board at that age. And so I contact Jesus and ask him questions, and something or someone would answer. I'd contact dead relatives. My granny had passed over, and so asked to speak to my granny, and something, or maybe my granny came through. I had no idea what I was messing with. And one day I asked, what was I thinking? To speak to the king of the devils. So by this point I had awareness of angels and demons and devils. And so something came through, and I was asking it questions. I can't remember what I was asking it, but I was asking it questions and I wasn't giving it time to answer properly. And the glass started shaking. This was like kind of like a wine glass, but a bit shorter, but it had a stem on it. And the glass started shaking like really quickly. And all of a sudden it didn't just break, it smashed into, well, sand. And all that was left was the stem and the base of the glass, but the actual, the bit that you put your wine in or your drink in, wasn't just in like smithereens. It had turned to dust, sand. And at that point, my mum came in and she was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And that's the first time it was found out what I was doing, and I'd never do that again. And I never did do that again. We moved from London to Northern Ireland when the Troubles were on. So when the Catholics and the Protestants were fighting. And we lived in various places in Ireland for a number of years. And 3 places we lived in. And so I went to 3 different schools that I can remember. At least 3, if not 4 maybe. I can't remember exactly. But I was aware of the religious divide. It was everywhere you went, and even when we lived in Derry, the riots were going on practically at the end of our street. Bombs were going off practically at the end of our street. The army were walking around armed on our streets. And so I became aware of, the division that religion can make. And I was going again to a Catholic school at that point, and I just couldn't, at that age, even though I was maybe 7 or 8 at this point when we moved there, I couldn't reconcile the religious side and the fighting and the death and destruction that was going on in the name of religion. Of course, it was very political as well. And I ended up going to a convent school, and it was mainly girls, but I think they had recently started letting boys in, and we were taught by nuns and regular teachers as well. But it was very much, that's the thing that struck me when I moved from the London Catholic school to the Irish Catholic schools. Religion was very much dominant, and that remained the same throughout my time in the Catholic schools, and certainly in the convent. And me and my parents would make me go to church and make me go to confession and make me go to mass. I found the whole thing so boring. And of course, I was being a teenager. I was getting really, really rebellious. I was so rebellious. I was so, I wanted to stick 2 fingers up at authority and the rules, and I really got into the punk movement and not doing as I was told. And I don't think, I was like really, really bad, but I certainly gave worry, certainly to my poor mum. Sorry, mum. I didn't get into drugs, and I didn't, run away, although I threatened to a few times, I think. But I certainly rebelled, and I rebelled against God, and I did some quite anti-God-like things. And whilst I was growing up, I also had a sense of things not being quite as they seemed. I had a sense of the world that we live in, this reality is multidimensional, and I felt that there was more to be seen that cannot be seen. I was given many gifts along the path, just like a sensing, just like a knowing. I'd have dreams and have visitations in my dreams. I'd also have dreams that would come true as well, or I'd have dreams about people, only kind of friends and people I knew, that would end up coming true. And actually there's nothing bad, nothing like really predicting like a disaster in the world or anything like that. But it was quite interesting to be shown that side of things, and how we're all connected, even if we don't know how everything works together, how everything's knitted together in a way, how everything is a reflection of the other. And if what do they say about a butterfly flapping its wings, it can cause a tornado in another part of the world. Something just fell off the ceiling. Oh, sorry, something just dropped from the ceiling. I don't know what it was.
I'm just editing this video and I've realised that there is a huge chunk that I have missed out of my story. So I'm going to inject it here with some images. But what prompted me to remember was the interruption as I was making that video. Because that particular room I was in, actually I've had a lot of, let's say, paranormal activity there. But let me go back, back to my childhood really, and then I'll come back to the modern day or today and tell you about that particular room and the house, the experiences I've had there. So one of the things that I've had throughout the years, all my life, even up until this year, I've had one experience of it, is the sleep paralysis side of things. And every time it's happened, it has been a scary experience, of course, but I am very aware of having to fight off a darkness. And at times I have seen the dark entity or dark entities that I'm fighting off, and it's always troubled me. It's maybe happened, it's hard to say exactly, but a few times a year. I would never know when it would happen. And it has been a battle on an energetic level. So I just wanted to mention that. And I never knew how to protect myself from it or stop it when it was happening. But of course, I was always relieved when it was over. The attack, if you like, was over. But what I have found for the last attack, and actually the one before that, was I was able to just invoke God's name, Jesus's name, and I was able to stop whatever it was happening in its tracks. So just by the power of calling out God's name or Jesus's name, it stopped. So that's very revelationary. So back to this house that I'm filming in. I've been coming here for about 8 years, for a few times a year. And from my very first stay here, I experienced what I would then call paranormal activity. And the first instance was actually in the room that I'm filming in, when I was woken up in the middle of the night, and I thought something or someone had taken a sledgehammer to the outside wall, because there was just a huge banging noise. But the banging noise continued, but it came inside the room, and it went all around the 4 walls of the room, which of course was terrifying. I've also had like a knocking on the bedroom door, but you know, I'm the only one in the house, and so there's no one there. I've had the duvet pulled off me. I've had sleep paralysis, as I've just explained there as well, and very much a sense of being watched in a certain area of the house, and a feeling quite fearful, of course, naturally. And it felt like I couldn't like literally see it, but it felt like a shadow figure, or certainly the energy of a man. And this went on for years. But the reason most people say, well, why are you staying there when all these things are happening? But I've had so many paranormal experiences over the years that have just, you never really become used to it. And I don't encourage it by any means, but you kind of learn to live with it. Or I've kind of learned to live with it. But this entity in this house, I decided that I didn't want to live in fear of it any longer. So I actually consulted my priest friend, who we had a chat, and he advised me of some things I could do. And so I faced my fear of this entity that was in the house, that was always kind of lurking around corners, only kind of at night time, but sometimes I'd feel it during the day. And I confronted it for the first time instead of ignoring it. And it actually turned out to be a very scared entity, but it was trying to act fearful. And I think it was trying to get my attention because it knew I was, I don't know, susceptible to being contacted. And what I believe this entity turned out to be was actually a man who had been killed, and in a war, in a obviously a not very nice way. So I ended up helping out this entity and sending it to the light, which was a whole process on its own, which it was quite an experience altogether. But since then, so I'd tolerated that. I'd kind of put up with this entity for 6 years, multiple times a year. But once I had sent it to the light, that all the activity stopped. I could not feel its presence anymore. And so, thankfully, nothing else has happened in this house. But I just wanted to mention it because that is another part of my story, is paranormal activity, poltergeist type activity, things moving, seeing ghosts sometimes until this point. So I just wanted to mention that part as well, because that's an important part of my story.
But growing up, as soon as I could not go to church, I didn't go to church. And then we moved over to England, then to Birmingham. Nobody could make me go to church, so I stopped. And I considered myself like an atheist. I think I even called myself an atheist. God was not in the picture. God was not part of the picture. And I just lived pretty much a normal life in that sense. I went to work, I had a job, didn't like it. Didn't like being told what to do or anything like that. And I knew there was more to life, and I knew I was born for more, but I had a very limited view of the world at that time, and I didn't know how to reach my potential and do the work that I'm here to do. So, God left my life, and then my experience in life, I look back now and I can see how I didn't honour myself, how I didn't respect myself, how I did the bidding of others and put their will before my own, and how that influenced my life in a negative way. I can see how I didn't have the coping skills or the maturity to handle many parts of life. So that's how we grow and learn, of course. Life will throw things at us, good and bad, and we'll hopefully learn and grow and heal and recover, and then move on to the next thing that comes along. And I was just trying to wing it, really. And I went through years of depression, bedridden with depression, because I was so out of alignment with who I was born to be and the life I was actually living. So I lost many years to depression and not living life to the fullest. And I had no idea that actually everyone's born with a purpose, and that I have a purpose to fulfill. But I clearly wasn't fulfilling it because I was so miserable and so unhappy, and as I say, like literally depressed, and thoughts of not being here crossed my mind frequently. There were very, very dark periods like that went on and on and on, and I thought they were relentless, and I'd never recover from them. And I would get angry with the world, and I would get angry with the universe, and I'd think I was being punished. Like, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. Was I blaming God? Did I have an awareness of God to blame him? Or if there was a God, why is he doing this? But it was kind of like a broader universe, like this isn't fair, and why me, and kind of like being in a victim mode about things. But there was a time when I eventually got out of that depression and started thinking, well, I want to help other people, and I wanted to have an impact on people. It's the first inkling, and I actually did a course on life coaching at a college, and I qualified as an NLP practitioner too, and I thought, I'm going to do something with this. I'm going to help people, because I had been through such a dark time that I thought I don't want other people to go through that. So then there was that inkling, okay, well, I can help people. I didn't know if it was my calling or not. I didn't have an awareness of that, but I thought this is something that I could do, because if I can save somebody else from being as miserable as I was, that would make the experience worthwhile. So I got the qualifications, but I didn't actually do anything in a practical sense of starting a business. I didn't really know how to at the time. I think that was even pre-internet or just at the dawn of the internet coming into play. But I did make other changes in my life. I made big changes. I was like jacked in the job that I hated. That's a whole other story. And the moment I did that, my depression lifted for like completely, and I moved house. I'd already broken up with the guy that I was engaged to, and then I went travelling around America and made huge changes, and I was starting to make a break for freedom and independence. And the next job I got was very local to me, and I was able to walk to work, and it was only 4 days, and I thought, oh, this is a bit more freedom. It wasn't full-time quite, but it wasn't long before I started not being happy in that particular job as well. And so I made a break for freedom then and started working for myself. And I actually told that last boss, ironically enough, now I'm talking about this, to go to hell. We had a falling out, and I walked out, and it was sink or swim. But that was my first moment of working for myself, and I think that's maybe 16 years ago now. It's been an amazing journey. I mean, I hadn't got a clue what I was doing or what to do next, and I started following my passions, which were close. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to have a passion. This is what it's like to be interested in something and then do that thing. And then I'd find another passion, and my business would evolve into that, and I'd find another passion. It was very evolving. One passion would lead to another, would lead to another, would lead to another, would lead. And then as the passions went on over the years, I started feeling more towards having a purpose in life. And I started teaching that, and I started coaching about that, but also working for yourself and creating a life of freedom, being independent, and helping women who are like myself, that wanted to break free, that wanted to do something that they were passionate about, who wanted to wake up every day excited about their lives, not that they were going and having Groundhog Day, day after day. That's no life to live, but we all do it, and it's heartbreaking when we get stuck in that rut and we can't see beyond our own potential. So I was doing that when I started travelling around the UK, and I discovered, quite by accident actually, or is anything by accident, a little town in Somerset called Glastonbury, and this was in 2016. And like many people, I instantly fell in love with the town, and I would describe it as like a magical town, a town of a lot of myths, a lot of legends, a lot of spiritual, new age, as I say, magic, occult, beautiful landscapes, quite an eclectic mix of people from all different backgrounds, and I just instantly fell in love with the place, and I thought, oh, this is my heart's home. And it became my heart's home for 7 years. The last time I was there was last year, 2023. And I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And that is when my search for something other than this day-to-day reality began. And I started searching for a connection to God, but also I was mesmerized and taken in and drawn into the world of magic and occult and the esoteric and the spiritual and the new age. And I went down many, many different routes in that respect. I discovered gods and goddesses, and I took part in, quite frankly, some dodgy rituals, but I did it all with the best intentions. I never went like seeking darkness or going into things with evil intent. It was always the best intentions with the connection. Like when you become a searcher, sometimes things that you don't know about intrigue you, and you think, oh, maybe the answer's in there. Maybe the answer's in this book on magic. Maybe the answer's in the book of the occult. Maybe the answer is in this crystal. Maybe the answer is in this deep meditation. Maybe the answer is in the tarot cards. And I actually learned the tarot cards. I got really, really into the tarot cards. I went to tarot classes, loved them. That became my thing. And anybody that, you know, knew me in that period would say, oh yeah, Karen loves tarot, she'll do your reading. And I did readings for friends and professionally as well. I had clients, and funnily enough, I never did that many readings for myself, believe it or not. I would do them at the tarot classes once a week as I was learning the tarot. But really, other than that, it was only maybe New Year's Eve as we began the new year and looking ahead. Occasionally, maybe once or twice throughout the year, I'd consult them for a question, but I never really read for myself, which I now think is actually quite interesting. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I had the faith I had in the cards to do readings for other people? Why didn't I have that faith in doing readings for myself? Or maybe I was able to discern answers myself without the use of the tarot cards. But during that period, let's say that 8-year period, or 7-year period rather, of being in Glastonbury, making so many friends there, having so many amazing experiences. It really was a life-changing period in many ways. And during that time, I was searching for God. I'd try connecting with Him. I would go into churches and cathedrals, or wherever I was on my travels. I'd light candles. I would seek that connection, but it never quite happened. And it was frustrating. And I remember in an area close to Glastonbury, there's a place called Cheddar Gorge, which is amazing. If you can go there, if you haven't been, take a trip, because amazing views. And I could feel and sense God, and still can, you know, in nature, in big views, in seeing big skies. And I remember one day in 2016 being at Cheddar Gorge and just taking in the views and talking to God and saying, look, if you're there, I kind of bartered with him or bargained with him, and I was saying, I can't remember the exact words, but I was saying something along the lines of like, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And which I know is not a great approach to try and bargain or barter with God. You don't need to. But that's where I was, and I had no response, I felt. And so I felt God was something or someone that was far removed and that didn't want to connect with me. And so I felt like I wasn't good enough, there was something wrong with me, and I felt unloved and unwanted by God. But I would still continue to seek and get answers. And I remember actually one time going into a church in Glastonbury, walking down the aisle, and then feeling like pushed out of the church, and I couldn't go any further down the aisle. I had to get out of there. It was like a panic attack kind of came over me. I was like, I've got to get out. But actually, with hindsight, I think that could have been something that was attached to me that was pulling me out of there, because I dabbled in this and that and the other, and knowingly or unknowingly, you know, you connect with so many things, or I did. And so when that happened, when I was repelled out of the church, I thought, oh, God doesn't want me there either. And I didn't give up. I would still go into churches and sit there, but I never really got that connection. It didn't come through. And I suspect now with hindsight, it's because I had all these other layers of things coming into play, you know, like the tarot, like magic, like doing little rituals or big rituals. And I remember going through a period of seeking my guardian angel for a long time. I put a lot of effort into that actually, and never quite getting there. But other things would come into play, you know, other angels would come in, but they weren't quite the right ones. And I remember considering a very evolved ritual, which is why I didn't do it, because it was too big a commitment, thankfully. I won't tell you the name of it, but it involves daily dedication, and for months, I think maybe even 6 months, something like that. But part of the journey to reach your guardian angel, this wasn't even to reach God, this was to reach a guardian angel, involves encountering a lot of demons along the path. I didn't do it, but I was thinking of it. So you never know what you're opening yourself up to when you dabble in this and dabble in that, and other people's intentions also, that you know, even though they might seem well-intentioned and good-spirited, you're still getting involved in whatever their intentions truly are, and whatever may be attached to them in the work that they've been doing. And another reason God felt so far away, I think, is because I thought I had to speak to him a certain way. And I think this is a hangover from my Catholic upbringing, where we were very, like, respectful of God. Of course you should be respectful of God, but prayer was very serious and kind of a bit too dry for my liking, really. And I didn't know how to speak to God. But now I know that actually God knows us inside out. He creates us. He knows our personality, so we can actually just be ourselves when we speak to God. And that has really, really helped me in the last several months in developing this relationship and connection with God. Another reason I think the connection didn't come in for a long time as well is because with all the things that I was doing, like the crystals and the tarot and the incense and the rituals and the candle lighting and the this and then that, I was putting them above God. I was putting them before God. I was worshipping them. I was worshipping a crystal. I had this little ruby crystal that I treasured. I wore it in a necklace for a while. Looked after it like I've actually lost it now, and now I come to remember. But I would treasure these things over the connection to God, or over seeking that connection. And I think one of the sayings is about false idols as well. So I was creating false idols out of these things. That's the thing with the new age and the occult side of things. And when you discover one thing, when you scratch one itch, another one will appear, and one path will lead to another. And that's, I could never stay on top of it. I could never satiate my learning. I could never get the answers, because the answer's only really with God and Jesus and the message, which I'll get onto in a moment. But it was never ending, and it's just like you pull a string, and you think, oh, the answer's at the top of the string, or I'm going to get to, no, the just string keeps on coming. It'll present something else in front of you and something else, but you never get to the end of it. And I had that realization that this isn't happening, but I didn't know really what else to do, so I kept on searching and uncovering something else, and one way leads to another way and another way and another, and oh that's a new shiny object, and oh, I can do this now, and it's endless, and it can be quite exhausting and take up a lot of time and effort for perhaps not the results that ultimately you're looking for. I had so many interesting experiences whilst I was in Glastonbury, whilst I was dabbling with herbs and crystals and sigils and all these things. I was shown a lot, as in I could see the energy and felt like I could work with the energy, and I really got into everything is energy, and I was literally shown the sort of energy in the air one night. You know, it was like as if I'd been on drugs, but I hadn't taken any drugs. I was given the gift, if you like, of clairaudience, so I could hear conversations from miles away, which I was able to validate, actually. So how the world works, I mean, it's incredible. Clairvoyance, obviously my intuition, my gut feeling, my knowing, all these gifts, if you like, came into play from one source or another, whether they're from God, whether because I was seeking, I was showing things, could have been from another element, I don't really know. But I had all these experiences in Glastonbury. So Glastonbury and that 7-year period was very, very pivotal in my life's journey, and I made so many friends there and great connections. But interestingly enough, many of those friends fell away, and I don't think that's just a coincidence at all. And I think that is part of the journey. I've heard other people say on their journey to God and their connection to God that, yeah, people that you thought we were going to be friends for life, fall away. And it can be quite a shocking thing that happens. It was a surprise, but not a surprise. I'm glad it happened, because I realised I wasn't actually speaking my full truth. I wasn't deliberately lying, but I was keeping things to myself that perhaps I shouldn't have. And so all these things happen for a reason. And of course, then with this journey to God now, new people are coming into my life, more aligned people, and it's all working out. Everything always works out in your favour in the end. And even though we might not have that connection with God that we want or like, I do believe regardless, he's doing some work behind the scenes. I don't think he will impose himself if he's not requested, but certainly with the Glastonbury experience, it has been an experience, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And talk about timings and God's workings, and interestingly enough, and this is very pivotal to my experience, on my last journey to Glastonbury, literally on my way to Glastonbury to spend 2 weeks there, I got a message out of the blue from somebody who I had been really good friends with, who was a mentor to me, who I thought the world of, but we had drifted apart for a number of years and we hadn't been in touch. So we reconnected, and this friend was on her journey with God and putting God first. She'd always been a Christian, but she'd never really mentioned it during my previous friendship with her. But now she was talking about God, and God was first in her life, in her business, in her work, and everything that she was doing. Which I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it was nice to reconnect. And we started, messaging each other and keeping in touch. And during that last visit to Glastonbury, I started to feel a distance actually from Glastonbury that I hadn't felt before. I'd always felt very pulled towards Glastonbury in a very, very strong way, as if Glastonbury had a hold of my heart and was, calling me in. It was quite visceral at times. But I started reading my friend's work online and listening to her videos, and she still does hold an online Bible study. So I thought, I'll just come along and have a look.
Just a quick side story about my friend who I've just mentioned. I had this, I can't remember if it was a dream or a vision that came to me, and she was shown to me as being a shepherdess with this crook, and I felt like I was like a lost sheep, and she kind of saw what I was up to and the things I was getting into, and she reached out her crook and thought, is that the way you think you're going? No, just come on over this way. And she steered me back on course.
And also in the meantime, I have had another friend who I met in Glastonbury who's a priest, and he has been very much part of my journey and helping me connect with God as well. So I've had two people that have been very, very pivotal in my journey. Yeah, just by bit, kind of taking other people's teachings, mainly my friends, because I could relate to her and her experiences, and she put things in a really practical way, and a way that felt very like God was approachable. God wasn't this far off, distant figure that I'm not good enough for, or that he doesn't want, or he's rejected, that actually he wants a relationship with me. And as they say, when you move closer to God, he moves closer to you. He will not force his will on you, but if you are open to having a relationship, he will come forwards. And that's been my experience. So in getting to know God, his teachings, his ways, how he places a calling on our hearts, because I am, if you've been following me for any amount of time, talk about purpose and following your purpose and following your calling in life. And he places this purpose on our hearts, and it's up to us in our lifetime to fulfill that purpose. So that's how my connection has been deepening. I only had the capacity, as I said to my friend just the other day, I only had the capacity to imagine like a God-light version of a relationship with God. But actually it's become quite a God-intense version of a relationship with God. So I'm going through this intense change at the moment, and the old me, the former me, the one that was so familiar to me, is now starting to feel like an old friend. And I am becoming renewed in my relationship with God. And he is renewing me. He's renewing my spirit, my soul, every aspect of me, and even my purpose and my calling, which hasn't taken a huge U-turn by any means. It's still about following your purpose, following your calling, following that gift he's placed on your heart. But I'm just seeing it through a different lens, through the eyes of God, really, now. The other thing that's been a revelation to me is the Bible. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I've been into self-development. I've taught self-development, personal development, being your best self. I've really got into philosophy as well, and psychology to a degree. But my goodness, anything that I've read in any of those areas, I will say this has blown them out of the water. I did not know the gifts, the treasures, the lessons, the knowledge that is contained in this book. I always thought this book is going to be so dry, so dull, so boring, so unrelatable, because it's written so many years ago. And I'm certainly no expert on it. I've only just dived into it, and I hear certain quotes, and I've just noticed that there's actually a map at the back of this one. That's how unexplored this Bible is. It's my second Bible now, actually. Didn't have any Bibles, got two now. And I'm sure I will have many more. But my goodness, this is a book for life, for life. The lessons in it, the stories, it's gripping. I never thought I'd be the person to rave about, or to make this video, to talk about God as I'm doing, to rave about the Bible. I don't recognise myself, really. The change is happening so quickly, I can't keep up with myself at the moment. But I am going to go to Bible class, and it's fascinating, and it's a real blessing to have the knowledge that is contained within, because it has the answers for everything. Any area that you are stuck in life, that you've got questions about, that you don't know what to do or where to turn, it's got an answer. There's so much wisdom in it. And there are different versions, I've learned recently, of the Bible. So some have been translated, so they're a bit more easy to understand or comprehend or digest. So it's not, because sometimes you can think of the Bible as written in quite an old-fashioned way, because it was written in old-fashioned times, but the lessons in there and the stories are as relevant today as they were then. So if you're curious, I would definitely recommend having a research and seeing which Bible is the right version for you. One of the other changes of many that have come into play is just a sense of peace, calmness, confidence, assurance. Fear is falling away. Now, you probably wouldn't, if you had known me, thought I had a lot of fear. I have fears, I still do. They haven't gone completely, but I'm working through them, and I'm certainly a lot more fearless now, and that is thanks to the work that I've been doing, but also the work that God's been doing through me and with me. And I've watched videos like this in the past. I've judged people, I'm ashamed to say, actually. I remember years ago, not that many years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I can't remember when exactly, I met this lady in person, and she was around the same age as me, I think, and she had left a cult that was run by this Irishman, I think. She managed to escape this cult, and she had found Jesus, and she was raving about Jesus and how great he is, and he's the best, and Jesus had appeared to her in a room, and the room lit up, and I was listening to her going, making polite sounds. Oh, that's interesting, that's nice. But not getting it, not understanding it, and just thinking, that's okay, whatever you say, And I've seen people make videos like this, and they've been so enthusiastic and happy and at peace, and there's a certain energy that they have about them, and I didn't get it, though. I didn't get it, and I judged them, and I think I didn't understand, and I can't even really say what way I judged them. Like, I thought maybe they were they were lacking, so that they were lacking in themselves. They weren't full in themselves, so they had to rely on God or Jesus or something like that. It was along those lines. But of course now I have to reconcile my judgment with what I'm literally doing right now, is doing what they've done and talking about God and Jesus and the impact and the positive change that I am experiencing in my life because of that. So I think there's a lesson there definitely about judging people. I'm sure there's something in the Bible about don't judge lest you be judged, or something like that. See, I can't even quote Bible properly at the moment, but it's so easy to judge people, and that is definitely something we're all very good at, and of course judging ourselves in a negative light as well. And I think with God, you're shown, actually, he loves you. He is the Heavenly Father. You are his favourite child. I am his favourite daughter. And I am who God says I am. I'm not who anybody else tells me I am. And he places that knowledge in my heart, so I can move forwards with a lot more confidence, perhaps, than before, where you would consider the eyes of other people on you, like what would they think, or what would they say, or what would they... And that's only natural and that's human, but really you're putting them above God if you prevent yourself from doing something that God has placed on your heart to do, to follow your calling, to take that next step, that next piece of action. Like this video, God said your next step's making this video, so here I am. But I could let fear and doubt and worry and the eyes of others and the opinion of others, come into play and affect me and stop me. And I could be thinking, well, I won't do it good enough and I won't explain everything and I'll miss things out and people will judge me, and let them judge. But the other thing that I wanted to say is just there's a feeling of liberation to finally truly accept myself and my purpose, and know that the thing that I felt in my heart all along is the gift from God, that it's not something that I've manufactured, it's not something somebody's told me to do, or somebody has told me how to be or how to act, though goodness those people have tried over the years. But thankfully I am quite rebellious in nature in some respects, so that has served me well. But also there's a very serene sense that comes through a connection with God, and knowing actually you're living the life that you're meant to. There's always going to be another step, there's always going to be another way, and where things are at the moment is, maybe even a few weeks ago I would have told you what was on my path. I could see it, I could see exactly what I had imagined. But now, as I was saying to my friend just a few days ago, it's like a blank sheet. It's like I can only see white light in the future, and I can only see the next step. And so I'm turning my life and my business over to God and following his guidance. And my business is going to be God-led, and it's going to be through the lens of God and God's messages to me, or guidance for me. And I can only see this, it's like a white light ahead of my path now. I can't see anything but the next step, and God said the next step is to make this video, and then I'll show you the next step and the next step. So we're going to work like that at the moment, it seems like. And as I said, I'm having trouble keeping up with myself because so many positive changes, and the old things are falling away, the things that are no longer serving me, the things that are not of me and not for me. And I was worried that, I'm smiling and happy, of course, but also it's a bit scary because there's so much change, and I don't recognise parts of myself because old parts of me are falling away. And I said to God, look, I'm worried I'm going to lose my edge, lose my bit of toughness, lose a bit of aggression, sort of all that sort of masculine energy that you need in the side of business. And he was like, you don't need that edge that you had, that protection in a way that you had, that was put on you by other people who didn't treat you very nice over the years. But you don't need that. That is not who you are. That's not part of your true nature. Your true nature is much softer, more feminine. It's safe for you to be more feminine now. So hence my extra flowers in the room as well. But I do feel that, like, obviously very feminine woman anyway, but there's a side to me that is a bit more, has a bit of an edge. And he's like, no, that's something you developed because of other people, and it's not something I've put on you. So that's very interesting to know and to get that insight as well. So it's all a bit of a whirlwind at the moment, but even though it's scary, it's exciting and it's calming and it's reassuring, and it's all these contradictory things at the same time. And also, even last week, I was doubting the whole thing. I was questioning, like, does God exist? What about Jesus? And I think that's a natural part of the process as well, to question things and to doubt things. And I know, I mean, there's irrefutable evidence that Jesus existed, so we know that much. He's a well-documented, most probably documented historical person that ever has been. So we know that he physically existed, and the miracles that he did, and the obviously the way he died, all these things happened. They've been well documented. And what I found very interesting was about how the disciples died, even though they were, I'm generalizing here, and I'm so sure somebody who knows more than me at the moment can correct me, but his disciples were tortured and threatened with death, and their families were threatened as well, and they were asked to deny Jesus, and they wouldn't, and they died in most painstaking ways that possible. I think one was skinned alive, one was crucified like Jesus, another was burned, so, and they would not deny Jesus, and they would not deny their experiences with him. So we have all this evidence and witnesses to Jesus rising again on the third day. So we have Good Friday, and of course the resurrection, and there were hundreds of witnesses to that. But also, if you think the impact that this one man, Jesus, the Son of God, had on the world. You only have to walk down your local street to see a church. I don't know how many churches there are. Beautiful cathedrals, beautiful churches made in worship of this man. That's no small feat. And you look at the priests and the nuns and the people that have dedicated their lives in a holy way to this man. And it's hard to doubt his existence. But even if you do, just take a look out of the window, just take a walk in the park, just look up at the sky during the day or at night, look at the stars, and look how wondrous they are. And the world of the universe and what's out there, the galaxies and the planets and things like that, how they all work in harmony with each other. And the outer world, the universe, for example, is just as miraculous, complicated, intrinsic, magical in, not in an occult sense, but you know what I mean, a wonderment sense, as it is on the inner world at a cellular level. As much as we haven't explored the outer world to its full capacity, we haven't yet explored the inner world, the innermost parts of the cell. Look at the birds, look at the trees, look at the animals, look at nature, look at a flower, look at a blade of grass. Look how everything works together. Look how everything has a purpose, has a match. Everything slots into place. That alone can't be by accident. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, of course. Your journey is your journey. I just want to point those few things out to you if you're kind of questioning, like, well, does God exist? And just look around you. Look, I mean, you're a miracle to even be here. We're all miracles. It's been quite an interesting time, scary as well. I said to God the other day, I'm scared, and he said, what are you afraid of? This is what you asked for. And I was like, oh God, yeah, this is what I've been searching for the last 8 years. This is what I've been searching for in cathedrals, in nature, when I look up at the sky, or when I'm taking in a view, or when I'm asleep at night, or when I'm alone with my thoughts. That's what I've been seeking. Why should I be afraid? It's what I've asked for. And that was a beautiful realization. It was because, I asked for it and I've got what I want. And that's the thing with God. Seek and you will find. Knock and keep on knocking. And, it will be... I'm going to totally misquote here. You've got to ask and it will be delivered to you. And God was saying, yeah, you asked. Here I am. And I didn't demand, and I didn't try to negotiate, and I didn't try to barter or bargain with him or say, if you do this, I'll do that this time around. It's been a totally different way that we've connected. And one of the other really, really powerful things is, forgiving myself, but being forgiven by God. God will forgive you of anything. That's not to say you should keep on kind of sinning and doing things wrong, but he is a forgiving God. And so I've been in the process of repenting for, in many ways, who I've been, or the actions that I've taken, or the thoughts that I've had. I certainly haven't been perfect over the years, and I can see morally I've probably done, morally I've done questionable things as well. Never with the intention to hurt or damage. And even if nobody has been hurt or damaged, I think there is sometimes morally questionable things that I have done or been involved in. Not illegal or anything like that. You jump to any conclusions. But we've all made choices, and we've been presented with different situations, and have we always done the right thing at the right time? I like to think I have, but maybe upon further examination I haven't done that. So anyway, there's been a breaking off of all these my old ways, the things that no longer serve me, the things that are not of me, the things that are not for me, the things that are not of God, the sins I have committed. So I'm going through a period of that, and also, taking off with the breaking off of the things that are not of me. Once they've been broken off and removed by God, you can't kind of reattach them to yourself. So that's part of this liberation and transformation. Well, I suppose you could in theory do that, but it's hard once God's done his work on you for you to go back. And I know there will be examples of that, of course, and people lose their way and lose that connection. But God will always be there. God will forgive you and be there for when you connect with him again. And what I do know right now, it doesn't matter who I have been in the past. And it doesn't even matter now who I am. It's who I am becoming that matters the most. And that's the most beautiful thing. I think that's what I'm being shown now in seeing my future as this kind of blank sheet, this white light, this white path. It's a clean slate. It's a fresh start. You can become the next version of yourself, God is saying. So that's what we're doing. We'll see what happens there, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm just going to give you a quote. This is Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And this is what I feel God is doing for me at the moment. He's showing me new things. He's showing me a new way. He's going to pave the way. He's going to make a path in the wilderness. What looks like the wilderness, he's going to put the path there in front of me. He's going to create streams and nourishment and whatever I need in the desert, so to speak, or in the wasteland. And that's what, of course, he'll do for all of us. And so that's one of my favourite Bible quotes. And another one here is, I heard this the other day in a sermon in the church the other day, and it's walk by faith and not by sight. And that's true. I think when we operate without God, we operate in a day-to-day reality, which gets us so far, our own will, our own way, our own reality that we create, and we can effort and we can do that by ourselves, and certainly we can get very far. But sometimes we don't get as far as we want, or we get stuck and we get frustrated, and I've certainly been there. Our environment's very, very important, and who we associate with and things like that. Sometimes we're limited by the literal things in our lives and who we are in a literal sense. And so keeps us stuck. We stay in the same environment because we can't see beyond that. And that's what walking by faith and not by sight means. When you walk by faith, you walk into the future with faith, knowing that God has a plan for you. You're going to be protected. You're going to be okay, rather than doing it all by yourself and walking by sight with your own knowledge, walking by sight with your own experience, walking by sight with your own stories, with your own limitations, when really, with faith in God, you can do anything. and he will help you and provide what you need. I said that to God the other day. Oh, about making this video. He said, make this video next, to tell people your story. And I said, I'm not equipped to speak about you. He said, you are equipped. I've given you everything that you need. In all this transformation, I've been shown that there are things that I need to let go of, and that's self-sufficiency, self-reliance, being independent, being proud about that. If you followed me for any length of time, you'll see that I'm all about going out there, getting what you want, doing it through your own will, your own efforts. Independent women, yay. Certainly that masculine energy comes into play as well. But there's a lot of distrust in doing it in that way, which I'm learning about. So now, in the softening, being more feminine, it's trusting God and letting go of some of the control that I've always had over everything in my life, all the time, every day. And trusting and letting go. Independence in a way that has ruled me, or I've allowed to be ruled through me, or that pride that I've had. I've done it all by myself. Like, no, God's going to help you now. You don't have to do everything all the time by yourself and make it happen. God's going to support you and provide for you along the way. And that's the other thing that he said to me the other day. Take the next step and I will provide. I follow his word. I follow his guidance. And that's why, as I said, I'm turning this business into a God-led business. And so, the spirit of self-sufficiency, the spirit of uber independence, Miss Independence, it's time to let go of that as well and hand that over to God. And I never thought I'd be one to be going to church, actually wanting to go to church and enjoying it. And I'm quite an introvert, and I don't need a lot of company. I can spend a lot of time, more time on my own than most people I know, actually. So I have found a church. I have been testing the waters here and there, and I seem to have found a church that I like and that seems to like me. I've been made very welcome, at least, so I'm giving that a go, and I'm enjoying that so far. And being around, I think, godly people is very, very important. Not everyone's at the same stage or the same level, and I think it's important to find the right match energetically, if that's the right term to use, when it comes to the people that you connect with. Are the people where you want to be in your relationship with God, or are they perhaps a bit half-hearted about their relationship with God? I know who I want to be around as I, on this stage of my journey, so that's very important. So that's a development. I'm actually looking forward to going to church and going to Bible study, and feeling the Spirit of God run through me, but not just on a Sunday at church or not just at Bible study. It's a daily thing. I've got to speak to God every single day. I've got to renew my relationship with God every single day and speak to him every single day. And that's something, if I don't do it, or I'm late in the day doing it, I do feel a bit off. So I do enjoy that time in speaking to God and furthering my relationship and hearing his voice as well. So what next? Great question. I don't know. No, what I do know is God has shown me, he's given me the words women of influence, and what I mean by that, or what he means by that, is I've been shown all these women in their communities where they live, but also online, all around the world, who have a calling placed on their heart, who have the purpose, who feel it in their heart, in their soul, who are born for more, who are ready to step forwards in faith that they are here to help others, impact others, share their stories, share their experiences, help where they know that they can help with the people that they're here to impact and help change their lives and the lives of others. So in many respects, my purpose hasn't dramatically changed overnight, but I've been given a clearer vision, and I'll certainly be incorporating what God is showing me into my work. I want to keep following this relationship with God, and I'm very, very excited about that, but also follow his guidance with these women of influence that I'm seeing. I'm literally seeing women all around the world and their beautiful, beautiful souls and spirits that I want to share my stories, my experiences. That's what God is showing me or telling me or speaking to me about. It's like, speak about your experiences, speak about your journey, speak about what you know, share your knowledge, and don't hold it in. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, specifically on YouTube. YouTube's going to be my home first and foremost, and then Instagram, and then to a degree Facebook. But really I want to build a community here and meet lots of lovely, beautiful souls, and hopefully we can all support each other and work together and be inspired and be open to the message that God is placing on our hearts, on our souls, on our purpose, on our mission, and being brave enough and bold enough to say yes, 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 God, I hear you. Yes, I am following you. Yes, I am uncertain. I am not sure. I am scared. I am frightened. I'm confused. But I'm going to do it anyway. And I am only at the beginning of this journey. I feel called to share this journey and to continue my work and my purpose work. So this is where I'm going to be. I hope you'll join me. And if you want to, just hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss what's coming next. That'll be a surprise to me as well as you. And yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. And I've got a newsletter if you want to be kept up to date on that way. I'll put the link to that below in the description, and I will keep in touch with you as and when. If you want to book a call with me and have a chat, I do consultations. That's part of my work anyway. So I'll put a link to that if you want to book a one-to-one call with me for an hour, just for a chat or something more. We can have a chat about that, and I'd love to help you on your journey. Thank you so much for your time, and thank God for putting me in this place right now, and thank you for your connection, and thank you to the people that have been helping and supporting me along my journey.